So, is Mark? Oh yes, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship and councillors, this is a matter of extreme importance to people which has not had any open public discussion, which is a great wrong and not the way we as a city and a community should be doing things. I'm representing Restore Christchurch Cathedral Group, a community-based group who ran the campaign to have the cathedral restored. The cathedral itself is a place of memory, and the whole reason for that campaign, which engaged more than 10,000 people in our city and many more thousands from around the country and around the world, it's because of the importance of memory, which is a special human faculty. And you, Council, have just generously, with our ratepayer money, expressed your enthusiasm for memory by supporting the Red House Reserve. In our city, we've got many issues that require memorials and memory, but I'd suggest that this one is quite extraordinary. It's extraordinary because it's a memorial about the tragedy of war. And we know the city, this country, has had numerous tragedies of war throughout the 19th century, the Maori Wars. And then in the early 20th century with the First World War, where New Zealand sent its young men, predominant young men, to a theatre of war overseas, and we had more casualties amongst our forces per capita than any other combatant nation involved in the First World War. And the consequences of that, and they were huge for Canterbury, we're talking about thousands of young men, young people who died. The consequences were felt by every household in our community. Everyone knew people who were missing, who had died. Families had lost their loved ones. The grief and the effect on our community is beyond our comprehension today. But we should not ignore that, because the community at the time gathered around the leadership of one person who had a vision of a memorial which addressed the horrors of war artistically and sensitively. And the proposal was taken to the Anglican Church, who held a synod meeting in 1931 and voted to host the Citizens' War Memorial. It was not the Anglicans' War Memorial, it was the Citizens' War Memorial. There was a condition that went with hosting it, and that was that it expressed more explicitly Christian principles. And everyone would have to agree that the best aspects of Christian principles have to do with recognition of the preciousness of the lives of everybody, of the importance of fairness and justice, and trying to resolve conflicts in societies fairly, without war. And the statue, which we've been obscured and prevented from seeing these last 10 years, which I'll speak about, which is a dreadful thing that's happened. The statue is topped with a remarkable representation of an angel with a bent sword. The messaging is important, was important then, it's equally important now. Lest we forget, over the years, the Citizens' War Memorial for 70 years was the place where the people of Christchurch gathered to remember their losses. The number of people who would have gathered there and reflected and grieved and shared their memories would have been well in excess of 100,000, hundreds of thousands perhaps, over 70 years. It's a place of memory. The memorial was designed specifically for that location, not for any other location. And it seems to me, and I'm a member of the cathedral congregation, that it is most appropriate to be alongside the mother church of the city, the church that was conceived and imagined before there was any surveying of Christchurch to be in the centre of the city, a spiritual core for the city. And the memorial was designed beside it with strong Christian elements. It's 15 metres tall and is topped by a magnificent cross. It doesn't belong elsewhere or in Civvy Street. As far as I know it's very involved as a co-chair of the Restore Christchurch Cathedral campaign. No one expected the Citizens' War Memorial to be collateral damage to the reinstatement of the cathedral. We consider the use of the Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Limited's powers and the powers of the Order in Council and the imposed RMA-controlled use process that we're amongst now is an abuse of these powers. We appreciate that you, the Council, are in an invidious position through no fault of your own that is at odds with the normal democratic RMA processes, a situation which is a direct result of the Order in Council. With regard to the Citizens' War Memorial's removal and the sidelining of normal consultation and democratic process, it's important to take stock, as I have, of the War Memorial's history and its importance. The current church leadership has not presented the case for removal of the cathedral to the Canterbury Diocese Synod, which is an abrogation of a long tradition of synod democratic process. And we are aware, I am aware, of many Anglicans who do not support, vehemently don't support the removal of the Citizens' War Memorial, and have not had the opportunity to discuss and vote on this matter through their church processes. Likewise, and more importantly, because this isn't an Anglican war memorial, it is the Christchurch Citizens' War Memorial. Likewise, the wider community of Christchurch and Canterbury has not been presented with the opportunity to openly discuss and consider and be polled or vote on the removal of this memorial. Normally, destruction of a registered heritage site under the city plan would be, as a minimum, requiring an RMA resource consent process with public notification and public submissions within the established RMA framework for heritage protection. This hasn't happened. The OIC has overridden and abrogated the right for an open public democratic process under the RMA. And that is shameful. The Restore Christchurch Cathedral Group notes that when the cathedral was under SERA demolition order in 2012 and 2013, a legal challenge was presented by Great Christchurch Buildings Trust, which resulted in Judge Chisholm halting demolition and stating that the cathedral's fate was legitimately in the public arena and plainly a matter of intense public interest. This resulted in the church having to engage with the public and openly consider all options which ultimately led to the cathedral reinstatement decision. The situation today with the Citizens' War Memorial is similar. At no time has an engineering report been provided which makes the case for the necessity of removing it.
Mark, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up because you've reached your 10
Pretty quick.
minutes.
Okay, it's more than 20 metres from the foundations. That is not needed. This removal is not needed. Subsequent to the...
Mark, I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'm needing you to wrap up. You've reached your 10 minutes.
Okay,
The
I'm
time
going to wrap
is
up. I've got
completed.
just a few things to say. The OIC has provided a legal pathway for removing the Citizens' War Memorial. However, being legal does not make it the correct course to follow, and the church leadership are not required to follow through with its removal. City Council contentiously agreed to contribute $10 million to the cathedral's reinstatement. The cost, which has been expanded with the extra ancillary developments being planned, including the removal of the Citizens' War Memorial, an avoidable multi-million-dollar exercise. We urge you, and this is an urging from the Restore Christchurch Cathedral Group, unanimously the committee, we urge you, our City Council, like you did for the cathedral, to request a pause on the planned removal of a Citizens' War Memorial, so as to
Mark,
provide
seriously,
for expert
Mark,
opinion.
I know that you're trying to be helpful, but I've got a meeting to manage and there are other deputations that are waiting to be heard. If I allow everyone...
I had that the RSA, who have been so aggrieved by the exclusion from its use, the major branches of Papanui and Redcliffe Sumner, which are more numerous than the city branch, are strongly opposed to its removal and shifting as well.
Thank you very much. And on that note, can I invite Stan Chase, the Canterbury RSA President, and BJ Clark, National President, who will present on the deputation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Actually, it's Stan Hansen. Stan Chase is a distant relative, I
It's
think.
literally sitting in front of me as Stan. I do apologise,
Not a
Stan
problem.
Hansen. Of course you are. I know you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stan Hansen, the Canterbury District RSA President, and with me, of course, is Royal New Zealand RSA National President, BJ Clark. I recognise behind me Canterbury District Vice President, Neil Price, in attendance. Firstly, Mayor Leanne, we offer to you our sincere condolences on the loss of your husband Rob recently. We trust your time and grief is replaced in the days ahead to become warmly reflective and enduringly peaceful. You've all been presented with a small icon of remembrance. We consider this appropriate given today's historic event. I trust you keep this poppy and pin and cherish the significance they represent, especially here today. So, on the 19th of June 1937, the Citizens' War Memorial, the cenotaph, was unveiled. There had been much discussion on the cenotaph, the design, the location, the church, and the Bridge of Remembrance conflict. RSA associations from throughout the Canterbury district were highly active with fundraising activities to meet construction costs. We must remember these were lean times, difficult times with war clouds gathering over Europe that would soon envelop the globe. This was only some 20 short years since the end of World War I, the war that catalysed eternal misery. So let us put that aside. That was then. The cenotaph over the last 83 years has been developed into the main Christchurch central focus of conflict remembrance, mainly for World War I and World War II. but also recognises all other conflicts New Zealand forces have been deployed to since those horrific times. That time is called Anzac, of course. I'd like to take you to a time of consideration, the significance of the cenotaph. If we add World War I and World War II timeframes together, we would find that the world was in total war for 10 years, 3 months and 14 days. Between 1941 and 1914 and 1945. This equals 3,754 days of conflict. More recently, the New Zealand Defence Forces were deployed to Afghanistan for a period of over 10 years. That is significant. During the 10 years, 3 months and 14 days of World War, it is reasonably estimated approximately 101,543,000 people perished, both military and civilian, but the final figure is most probably much higher and is known only to God. 3,754 days of conflict. Each day, 26,945 people died for 10 years, 3 months and 14 days. Each hour, 1,122 people died for 10 years, 3 months and 14 days. Each minute, 18 people died for 10 years, 3 months and 14 days. It's difficult to understand, difficult to accept, and even more difficult to comprehend. 29,986 plus New Zealanders died during the World Wars. Many more would pass after the end of both World Wars, a direct consequence of combat exposure. Families were subjected to the horrors of combat with all its might. They suffered as well. We must never forget. Cathedral Square is a magnet that draws people in. It also radiates out the magnificent people share. It is a good place, world-renowned, with iconic symbols of human endurance and achievement. All this changed on the 22nd of February 2011. Everything we know changed after that date, as it did on the 28th of July 1914 and the 1st of September 1939. Let us briefly discuss the RSA cenotaph involvement. It is simple. We, the RSA, have no legal claim, no ownership rights to the cenotaph. All we have is an emotional attachment, a huge emotional attachment that has been born from service to New Zealand, mourning those who sleep over there. We should remember, emotions rule everything we do in life. Emotions created the situation of assassination in 1914 that started global conflict. We have a limitless connection to those who have gone before and those who suffer as a result of their service. We have immense support for the families of those who have and are currently serving. We are totally committed to remembrance and support. The cenotaph is a respected memorial for all who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, those who were maimed, disfigured and mentally scarred, those who have served and continue to serve, and their families. We seek a place for the cenotaph that allows us to pay respect, a place to recognise the price of freedom comes at a cost, and that cost will never leave. It has been paid for some 30,000 times. The Canterbury District RSA associations were recently asked for their views regarding the deconstruction, relocation and reconstruction of the cenotaph. The associations who responded, 81% in all, expressed a very resolute view. They desire the cenotaph to be relocated within Cathedral Square. This is our request. The Canterbury District RSAs is pleased to offer and suggest a guardian partnership with the Christchurch City Council to ensure the Citizens' War Memorial is accorded joint respect in all aspects of its being, now and in the future. This is also our request. We feel we have lost so much since the 22nd of February 2011. We must not lose this symbol of respect, this symbol of remembrance, this symbol of hope. The cost of this venture is nothing compared to that which has already been paid. We implore you to reject a storage option. Now is the time to finally accord an eternal location for this gracious lady, the Citizens' War Memorial, Cenotaph. A time to fix her brokenness, a time to restore her dignity at a place where not only veterans and whānau, but everyone can easily visit, be drawn into and to radiate peacefully out from. I thank you for receiving us today. I thank you for considering our presentation, which is not about us. It's about what has gone before and what is yet to come. I do have time. I respectfully would like to read our ode to the fallen. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not worry them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Thank you.
Thank
To finish this off, I'd just like to say a well-known phrase. Peace be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. There is half a minute left, so if somebody had a quick question for the RSA. Look,
Mayor, if I may, I'd just like to
yes.
say that my attendance here today is to support the Canterbury District in this process. There are too many occasions around this country that memorials, whether they be cenotaphs or buildings, being looked at either shifting or moved. There's been a lot of emotion around this particular one, discussion about it being stored, relocated into various positions. And I just wanted to support the Canterbury District in, I think, the best location for this is that if it must be moved, that it remains in the square. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the end of the time, so thank you very much
Appreciate
for
it.
your dedication. The next one is the Christchurch Civic Trust, Professor Chris Kisling and Anne Dingwall. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Leanne and councillors. It is close to Christmas. It is a time of haste to conclude business for 2020. However, in times of haste, expediency often trumps common sense and takes shortcuts without proper consideration of the resultant impacts. We exchange presents at Christmas, but who gifts a present that is in need of repair at a cost to the recipient? B, is regarded by the giver as an impediment to their territorial ambitions, where or when it is reinstated is not their concern, so long as it's not on their land. And C, will be dismembered and stored and rendered even more inaccessible to the citizens of Christchurch and to the families of those who perished in service to their country, compounding the current physical lack of access by removing the visual amenity as well. Out of sight, out of mind. The attitude of the church property trustees shows a lack of empathy for the Citizens' War Memorial. That attitude should not be allowed to infect this council when making decisions on behalf of all its citizens. The council staff report states at 1.6, the Citizens' War Memorial is an important monument. both in terms of its heritage status and its significance to Christchurch. We would add to the whole of New Zealand. The Council staff report omits to record the fact that the Citizens' War Memorial has the same heritage classifications as for Christchurch Cathedral itself. The report further states that the level of impact on those affected is relatively minor. We note that the resource consent application was not open for general comment. Furthermore, the Council staff report does not define or identify those affected. The families and descendants of those honoured in the memorial are significant stakeholders. They have been ignored in the process for the memorial's removal. The passage of time does not erase memories, particularly when there is significant publicly accessible artwork that encourages people to contemplate and be grateful for the lives of those who perished in defence of freedom. The Christchurch Civic Trust felt privileged to be invited by Council to make comments on the resource consent application. We have taken on this task as a civic responsibility. The Council staff report recommends that 1. Accept the gift of the Citizens' War Memorial as per the gifting proposal from church property trustees, subject to sufficient funding being provided by church property trustees for the relocation of the memorial. The CPT and the Cathedral chapter wish to advance the proposed gifting in parallel with this current consenting process, purportedly to minimise the time between deconstruction and reconstruction of the memorial itself. Whilst deconstruction of the memorial, described as option 4 in the resource consent application for the Cathedral Reinstatement Project, was claimed to be the preferred methodology option for the memorial's removal, the independent commissioner appointed by the Council has yet to make a determination, having regard also to comments submitted in accordance with the order in Council. In accepting the terms of the Church Property Trustees' gifting proposal at this time, in parallel with the current consenting process, the Council would be preempting the outcome of the consenting process. The Civic Trust notes with concern that the Council's legal unit has apparently neither reviewed nor approved the Council staff report with its recommendations of acceptance to the full Council. Possibly it has reasons not to disclose its position. The Council staff recommendation seeks Council authorisation for a Council officer to agree to scope the gifting process with Church Property Trustees, Chapter and Council. The Civic Trust contends that the Council's position in respect of the scope of the gifting process needs to be determined by the full Council, not a delegated responsibility, ahead of any negotiation entering into any memorandums of understanding. The Council's position must be determined in part by the Independent Commission's decision in respect of the recent resource consent application for the Cathedral Reinstatement Project, which included options and matters relating to the removal and relocation of the Citizens' War Memorial. At 5.24, the staff report states the Council will make available the new proposed site for the reinstatement of the memorial. The Council's ability to make available the new proposed site, which is the former police kiosk site, for the reinstatement of the memorial may be constrained or even prevented by the positioning of the construction boundary fencing. The fact that the kiosk site abuts the western boundary of the area proposed to be leased to Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Limited for 10 years and rolled over if required, as depicted at 3.2 in the Council staff report for agenda item 32 to be considered and determined by Council here today. The feasibility of locating the memorial on its new kiosk site during the term of the lease may be at risk. Should it be necessary for the memorial to be held in storage for this reason, for the duration of the lease, one would anticipate significant reputational damage to Council, the CPT and the CTRL, given the ongoing lack of public access to the memorial since 2011. The staff report notes the landscape assessment favours the site in the vicinity of the site of the former police kiosk. The Civic Trust notes that this statement in the Council staff report is misleading. The Council's landscape assessment clearly states the existing unused police kiosk is the recommended location and records that the kiosk and the memorial have effectively the same footprint, and therefore it does not take up extra space within the square. The site is also supported by the Council's heritage team. We would like to see the Citizens' War Memorial repaired and made accessible as a priority. The sacrifice of a memorial to sacrifice deserves better treatment than what is now being proposed. That is, dismemberment and storage until some unknown date. We urge the parties to design the new visitor centre to allow for the retention of the memorial in situ. If such a solution is repugnant to the Church Property Trustees, Chapter and its architects and engineers, then we yield to the next best solution, which is for the memorial to occupy the footprint of the abandoned police kiosk. The memorial would be accessible to the public as it is outside the construction zone for the cathedral. If the city accepts ownership of the memorial, it should do so only if the necessary funds are calculated and secured to do all the necessary work for the reinstatement on its new site. Any deconstruction, move and reconstruction should not involve an indeterminate period of storage. There is a price to be paid by the Church Property Trustees and Chapter to get what they want. Bank that finance before allowing the Citizens' War Memorial to be touched. Thank you.
Thank you. We've just got half a minute again to go, so thank you very much for timing your deputation within the 10 minutes. I'm much appreciated. Thank you. And next. Sorry, and now we move on to the deputations for item 31, but we will come back and we won't move on to the adjourned item that we were dealing with before lunch. We will go straight on to the Citizens' War Memorial, and then we'll return to the item. So if I could invite the first of the deputations on item 31, the Otakaro Regeneration Company Due Diligence Report findings, Cultivate and Willowbank. Fiona Smith from Cultivate and Mark Willis from Willowbank. Kia ora and welcome. Thank you.
Kia ora, Mayor Dalzell and councillors. First time I've done a deputation, and I see I'm probably supposed to have written something formal for you. I haven't. I apologise.
No, it's not required. It's not required.
Anyway, we'll just have a bit of a talk. My name is Mark Willis. I represent Willowbank. My whānau started Willowbank in 1974. My parents. I grew up there. It's still a family-owned and operated business. We also are a 50% shareholder in Kortane Limited, which is Christchurch and maybe the South Island's only multicultural tourism experience. So we've been in discussions with the Otakaro Regeneration Company about developing some new attractions for Christchurch within the red zone. From a Willowbank perspective, we'd just like to quickly outline what our vision is, and also for Kortane, I'll do the same thing, and then talk to you about why, as attraction operators, the model that's being proposed works for us. So we believe that New Zealand agriculture has a wonderful story to tell, and it's not being told by New Zealand. The story of why we produce the best food in the world and where our food comes from, and how we can develop a sustainable agricultural model moving forward. There's a lot of conservation stories to be told in agriculture that isn't being told. There's huge educational messages, and people visit our country for the wonderful food and beverage opportunities that are afforded to them. So we would propose that we were able to develop within the central city an attraction that initially we're calling New Kailand, how and why New Zealand produces the best food in the world. This would be a working farm, and would also have shows and interactive displays which would allow people to participate and feel and understand what agriculture is all about in this country. We would dovetail into that in order to commercialise it, the opportunity for people to be able to purchase relevant products and experience those products in a retail and or restaurant situation. In terms of Kortane's vision has been for some time to bring Māori culture back into the centre of Christchurch. And you may know that we've just recently done this in terms of our opening of our business, Waka on Avon. We have a plan for a site on the corner of Colombo and Oxford Terrace for a building known as Puari Village, and we would like to be able to extend that development to provide a deeper cultural experience further down the city that may include accommodation, kai, workshops, maybe some performance areas, and the opportunity to partner with Willowbank and potentially bring some of New Zealand's wonderful native wildlife back to Christchurch that may be experienced by those people who are enjoying an accommodation experience at that time. So the reason that this proposal works for us is that attractions by their nature are quite capital intensive, and the ones that I'm describing to you require an extensive amount of land. Unfortunately, the commercial reality when we're competing against property developers and such is that it's not feasible for us to be able to buy that land, and for an attraction like Willowbank, where we get, say, 200,000 people a year, to be able to get a commercial return. Now, if my family was interested in money, Willowbank would now be Northwood West, and we would be doing a hell of a lot better. So the proposal allows for us to be able to take a long-term lease on an extensive amount of land, and it also provides a funding solution. So for those of you of commercial minds, you'll understand that it's very difficult to obtain finance to build fixed assets on land that you don't own. The Otakaro Regeneration project provides that funding solution. So therefore, from our perspective, it provides what is a practical solution to allow the development of attractions in the centre of Christchurch that otherwise will find a number of hurdles in front of them to be able to complete the reality of bringing them to life. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Would you like to say a few words too?
Yes, I'll just talk about Cultivate Christchurch alongside. So, kia ora, I'm Fiona Stewart from Cultivate Christchurch as the founder and managing director. Cultivate Christchurch is essentially a social enterprise that's focused on positive youth development, where we employ young people, around 12 young people per year. These young people are on a benefit and have been for some time, so they require an extra level of support and care within the program, whilst also learning the employability skills and everything that you need to be employable and to retain employment, which is really important. So we also do an extended program once they've transitioned out of the program. We do this in an urban farming environment, so we grow organic produce that we sell to community and also to restaurants and hospitality, and we do that in order to reduce our reliance on funding and philanthropic sources. It's also giving a real-world work environment for our young people. Beyond our young people, we don't work with young people in isolation. To us, it's a community project as well. So we have a community engagement aspect where we work and support 600 plus people on site per year with outcomes around learning about mahinga kai, growing food, learning about environmental well-being, how to look after the soil that looks after our plants, and ultimately looking after ourselves and our well-being. So that's basically cultivate. Our challenge is land. We need to do this on land. There is long-term sites. Currently we have 4 sites and they are transitional. None of them are a long-term lease agreement. And so the importance for us to be in the red zone is to have a long-term home and to be able to continue our purpose in our mahi. And to us, collaboration is essential. We can't do food security, community work, youth development and employment on our own. So that's why it's really important to be alongside and with other organisations that have shared values.
Oh, good. Thank you. Sarah?
Thanks so much. And both your organisations are amazing, which is really cool. I'm just wondering why it is that you couldn't do what you're keen on doing through the City Council when the land rests with us eventually, and why it's necessary. So if we were willing, for example, to give a very long-term lease to the Takara Regeneration Company, then we'd clearly be willing to give it to other organisations. So why not council?
For me?
For either of you.
I think from our perspective, the point that I made around how we finance development on leased land is probably one of the key factors within their proposal that appeals to us. They have a financing solution so that the capital development of the product is taken care of, and we fundamentally become the operator. So I'm not saying that it couldn't work in terms of the council solution, but when we were trying to develop the Puari village site, initially it was proposed to us as a lease site. We had a hell of a lot of trouble trying to get finance for that, and it was only after we were able to take freehold that we were able to obtain that finance. So that's the primary reason from my perspective.
And we would second that too, and it's also around, again, that collaboration concept, support. We're a really small organisation. We are working to secure land sooner rather than later, and it's a proposal for us that was going to alleviate some of the restrictions that we have with time and staff time.
Thank you. Well, look, thank you both very much, and you don't have to bring a written submission. I think you've actually proved that an effective voice can be made when people have to concentrate on what you say rather than read what you say. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Could I invite Nicole Manawatu-Brennan, New Zealand Carbon Group, to come forward? Kia ora and welcome.
Kia ora. E mihi ana kia koutou. I'm here to talk about our role in this of the New Zealand Carbon Group, and particularly New Zealand Carbon Group is doing a lot of work with a number of different organisations, but most of them are outside of Canterbury, and so this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do something inside of the central city. The earthquakes provided us an opportunity to imagine our futures together and what they might look like, and we had an opportunity as a city to start to build our imagined future together, and have a look at how we were going to actually reset ourselves and use the river corridor as a place to activate space for the city. This is an extension of that, and the whole Otakaro network is a place that will activate it in many different ways across a number of industries. And for us specifically, it's in that New Zealand carbon space. So for us, what that means is that we would like to look at the blended native restoration around that area. Traditionally, there's been a lot of poplars around that area. And of course, this would be fully funded without any expense to council. We get to create a native playground for our rangatahi that are coming through, our merging rangatahi. And we also get to increase the biodiversity in the areas around our river corridor. One of the other things as well is that our intention is for this to become a living laboratory of climate mitigation. So we also know that we have recently had a declaration of, we're in a climate emergency. So this helps in that response as well. One of the things that really attracted us to be part of this vision is that it really is a place where, for myself being mana whenua, I'm from Ngaituahuriri, I get to really see ourselves in partnership with other companies across cultures. So we have a collision of cultures that happen working in this space together, really to build the economic and to actually contribute to the economy of our city. And has job creation. We get to bring people back to the city in those activated spaces, and across it we get to enjoy the tourism, the social side, but also those immeasurables that are really hard to measure around the feelings that we get when we are in those activated spaces and those shared spaces together. So for me, I'm not here speaking on behalf of Ngaituahuriri. I'm here speaking as myself, as an individual, as a whānau member. And for far too long, we have not seen ourselves reflected in the or visible in our city. And since 2011, we really got to reimagine what that might look like. And so for me, this is another part, an extension to the wonderful work that has been done to see my children and my grandchildren, my mokopuna, to be able to be reflected and see themselves when they walk through the city. And this again is just another demonstration of that strength of partnership that is needed in this city to ensure that we propel ourselves forward in a way in which we want to continue. So we, as a carbon group, we totally support this whakaaro and this kaupapa, and we'd really like to see it progress, and of course alongside council, who have already done a number of the anchor projects in the city, which of course will provide a good economic standing. And these things here are our social outcomes that are really important for our people, and for them to see that grassroots level people are doing really great things in the city to make them feel like they can also be part of it and own it as well. So kia ora. Any questions for me?
Just a quick question on our proposal to develop a co-governance model. Where do you think that should come in terms of the order of play with regard to the master planning process and when that should occur? Because it seems to me that the recommendation that we're considering today is that we look at master planning after we've started that process of considering the co-governance model.
If you're talking about co-governance, including mana whenua as well?
Yes, mana whenua.
Okay.
And then a development with the community as well. So it's mana whenua, and council is obviously landowner when we get to that point, which is why we're pushing forward on that now. But then how the community is part of that, how the council includes the community in the context of the co-governance arrangement with mana whenua.
Okay. So from a co-governance perspective, I always think that if you're going to start something from the outset, that it should have never been a question, that it should have been included already in that co-governance space for mana whenua to be able to contribute, and that would be in a true form of what a partnership looks like.
Yes, that's where we're starting from. We're starting the process of co-governance.
Oh, right, okay. So
Yeah.
okay, so that's
Yeah, that was the resolution that we passed, was that we would now focus on developing the co-governance, because we haven't taken ownership of the land yet. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Well, yes, definitely at the master
Yeah.
planning, because Mata Pōpuri have already done a lot of work around what that looks like and the development in that space. So I think that in that master planning space is probably where it would be good to see them in there and involved.
Right. Okay. Thank you, James.
Kia ora tōku whanaunga. With your whakapapa, and you've said that you're involved out at Tuahiwi, or you have whakapapa to Ahuriri? Yeah?
Yes, no, I'm very active.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was wanting to know. How are you involved out there?
So I am the secretary of the Ngai Tohuriri Runanga Executive. I am also a committee member of the Tuahiwi Education, and he urio no ngā whānau pētama me te whānau tau, me te whānau Manawatu.
All right. Then what's the position of the runanga per se, and or the runanga executive on what's happening in the space?
Well, I am not here as a representative
Yeah.
I know that.
of the
I
The
recognise
thing
that.
is that we are talking to the runanga. We're commencing that process.
But I'm asking whether Nicole's
But I don't know that
involvement.
Nicole can represent the
I
Ngāti
can't
Huriri.
represent and I can't speak on behalf of them.
No, I just want to know what you think about it.
I know that for myself, I'm not aware of that level as of yet. We haven't had that conversation hasn't come across
Yeah.
me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thanks for that. I noticed you're quite a new company. Is this the first foray into carbon farming for the
Yes, so
company?
we were established around about 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of our work has been done over in the Chatham Islands. We were establishing over there, and most recently up in the north in the Taupo region.
Yeah.
So before that, I was involved with carbon anyway,
Yeah.
working for the Māori Carbon Foundation.
Yeah. And you'll be aware that Christchurch has its own net neutral goals and those kind of things, and we'll be looking at space to plant and get our own credits,
Oh yes, and
which seems like a logical place for us to be doing that. So where do you see your stuff fitting in the corridor?
I guess we see this as more of an opportunity to be involved as opposed to an opportunity to make profit. So it's more for us to be able to be part of it and work with yourselves and whoever else wants to have that conversation around what that would look like. We would like the opportunity to plant as opposed to be able to collect carbon credits. And as you'd be aware, native plants anyway are really slow producing, and so often the economics show that you're going to pay more to plant them than you are to make any profit out of them.
And so why through the
Sarah?
regeneration company?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, we've come to the end of the time, so I don't want to start another question. So thank you very much for your presentation today. Thank you. And could I invite Avon Otakaro Network, Peter Beck and Hayley Guglietta, sorry, my apologies, Avon Otakaro Network. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, Madam Mayor and councillors. Thanks for having us today. I'm Hayley Guglietta and Peter Beck from Avon Otakaro Network. Before Peter speaks specifically on the agenda item today, I just want to give a quick update on our organisation, just to provide a little bit of context about our position on the agenda item. So after signing off the global settlement and the regen plan last year, and as well as the knowledge that Evan Smith was facing shortened life expectancy, our organisation got together early this year and we went through a series of workshops and a lot of time and thought into where we were at as an organisation, whether or not we'd done our job, and whether we needed to still be around to do the work. with regard to the river corridor. Clearly, as we hear today, we decided that there's still a bit of work to do in that space. So we looked at and celebrated what we'd done in the last 10 years, and then put together a new strategic plan with old but new objectives as to what we wanted to do. And for us, it's kept our focus very clear on what we needed to do. So our vision didn't change. Our vision is for a multi-purpose city-to-sea park that meets the diverse community needs with the maximum possible restoration of indigenous ecosystems. So that hasn't changed. Our strategic objectives are clear and focused. We would like to see a governance model that supports the vision. That's the Regen vision, which aligns very closely with ours. We want to see people, both locally and beyond, connected to the corridor, and we do this by facilitating and connecting people to foster activity and events that all can engage with. And we're striving for organisational stability, and we do this by fostering great partnerships with all of the stakeholders that are involved in the corridor. So that's sort of setting the scene for Peter to talk about the agenda item.
Kia ora tātou, nā hawe whāna iwe e tāne, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It's nice to recognise a few familiar faces around your table, and good to be here. The last time I sat here was with my beloved friend and colleague Evan Smith, when we were addressing you about similar matters. We speak on behalf of the Avon Atakara Network to totally support the recommendations of your staff on this matter, and indeed note and support the comments that are made by Mana Whenua in this regard that are included in your report. In no way are our comments to make any comment on the proposed merits or otherwise of this project or any other project, come to that. It's simply really that this is a classic case of the cart before the horse. Absolutely classic case. We indeed in the past have encouraged, and notably Evan did, encourage collaborative conversations with Rob and others to talk with other proponents about various options and potential projects in the future, to talk together, to explore together, to discuss this thing. The point we want to make as clearly as we can, though, is that the project is to approve anything at this stage is to preempt the fundamental process that needs to happen of developing a governance entity for the whole park. It's absolutely fundamental to do that. You made on November the 12th, you made some decisions. You said you agreed that staff will commence a process to implement the decision taken under the Global Settlement Agreement of 23rd September 2019 to establish a permanent community co-governance entity for the residential red zone. You also said, we agree that Ngā Tuahuriri will be invited to partner with the Council to investigate and develop options for the co-governance entity. And we note, you said, that this will build upon the work undertaken with the University of Canterbury and the community in 2019, with further governance symposium in early 2021. Great. As a result of all that, we are delighted that we can be part of a conversation with the Mayor and with the relevant councillors who are involved in this area, with Chrissy Williams, who of course chairs the Te Tira Kahikuki Hiku, which I could never pronounce properly, and Eric Pawson from the University of Canterbury, who was fundamental in the previous symposium of 2019, and with council staff to further on this conversation towards the development of a governance entity. It's a terrifically exciting opportunity we've got to develop something that's quite unique and quite distinct, to allow for the kind of things that we believe, as we all believe, not just us, but we know we all believe in, what an extraordinary creative vision has been given to us, the opportunities for within the residential red zone. Projects such as the Otakara Regeneration Company and any of the other projects, some of which you've heard about today, and others, maybe great projects, and they need to be considered and discussed together at the right time. At the time when you have a coherent and consistent governing body with the right premises to do that work. Not to do that would end up with piecemeal decision being made, ad hoc decision being made, which in our view will dishonour the vision that we all share, and will create disharmony and pushback from other groups within the community. So we ask you to support the recommendations of your staff in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Pauline?
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Just clarification, I'm just holding up a newspaper article and it was dated November the 4th, and it's about the project, Rob Kerr's project, and it states in here that Hayley, that you support it, and also Evan Smith wrote a letter of support for the project. So what's changed since then? Can you tell me?
Nothing's changed.
It's just simply the chicken before the
Pardon?
chicken and egg situation. Nothing's changed. It's simply a case of we need to make sure there's a strong governance model in place before.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. There's no issues about whether we support or not support the project. As you saw, Evan made some comments and support at that time.
Yes.
But this is not the moment for those discussions. You have to get the proper governance entity established before you go down that track.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Seriously cart before the horse at the moment. Thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? No? Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. And finally, Rob Kerr, Director, Otakaro Regeneration Company. Okay, there is a presentation, councillors, and it's been put on the hub, so you can open that up. It may not be that easy to read on the screen, so it may be assistance to councillors that they open up the presentation.
Yeah, that's fine. Kia ora, everyone. So we'll come to the presentation in a little bit. First of all, I have on behalf of the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce a deputation, a letter to read out on behalf of Leanne Watson. So it's dated 9th of December, so yesterday, to whom it may concern, which is everybody here, I think. Almost 10 years on from the Waitaha Canterbury earthquakes, the region is progressing through an ambitious and exciting rebuild program to deliver a vibrant, prosperous and sustainable 21st century experience for business, residents and visitors. The Otakaro Red Zone is Otatahi Christchurch's largest remaining opportunity from the earthquakes, so it's important that we make the most of it. This is why I'd like to offer my support for the Otakaro Regeneration Company's Otakaro Avon River Plan. The Total Development Project has the potential to be an important local asset and a national destination offering another draw card for domestic and international visitors and helping to position the city and region as a desirable destination for when the borders reopen. This is particularly important now as we see the economic impact of COVID-19 on many local businesses, including those in the tourism sector, and supporting sectors such as hospitality and accommodation. While the vision to deliver 28 projects over a 7-year development period is ambitious and will no doubt be challenging, the focus on everyone doing their part through key partnerships, including with the business community, is an example of a way of working that we should be striving for. It is also positive that no council money has been sought for the project. The proposal to establish a world-leading living laboratory would also further reinforce the region's positioning as a city of new ideas, innovation and leading-edge research, underlined by a focus on environmental sustainability. I look forward to seeing the project progress and doing our part to help promote and support such a positive evolution of a key area of our city. Ngā mihi, Leanne Watson, Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm not sure if I sounded very much like her, but hopefully you heard her voice in that. So that was Chamber of Commerce. I'll change on to Otakaro Regeneration Co now. Thank you very much for your time. And look, it's a really interesting time, and I really understand the tensions between making progress, financial challenges, and those to get all the ducks lined up in a row. And we can talk about that in a little bit. So I'm not going to make the big pitch to you and talk extensively about everything. You know that what the proposal is. The proposal is to lease 19% of the land, about 114 hectares, deliver 28 projects and deliver many of the commercial side projects that is the preferred land uses in the regeneration plan. Pay enough money through rates and rent to cover the maintenance on the balance of the land. So provide an opportunity for this land to be financially self-sustaining from an operational point of view. So there are many good things around it. You know the exciting and ambitious range of projects and businesses, and you just heard from Mark and from Fee and from Nicole on some of those projects, but of course there's a number of others. I want to. It's also built on the collaborative model of council, community, mana whenua and private sector working together in the room to develop the final master plan, and I think that's very important. I'll turn back to that in a bit. But I want to speak about two things in particular. One is to respond to the council report and some of the things that are stated in there, and I also want to talk about the options on how to move forward as well. So in terms of the staff report, it's probably no surprise to you that I'm a tad disappointed with it, not only in terms of its recommendations, but I don't think it was a particularly objective assessment, and there was no analysis of options or comparisons with alternative scenarios that I would expect in any report and advice to you. It's certainly the ones that I do for many people, including this council in the past. Might want to ensure that provide options for you to consider and to compare and contrast and to weigh. That isn't there. I sent to you last Monday night a detailed analysis of both the council report but also of your options. It's my attempt at providing you with that, and you're happy to answer any questions about it. I did that because there was so much missing or incorrect from the staff report. The representation of the DCL advice omitted certain words and key phrases which perhaps changed the meaning of what was intended by the DCL report. I felt it overstated many of the risks. It showed some misunderstanding of what the proposal actually is and the sophisticated parts of the commercial realities of it. And ultimately it didn't acknowledge any of the benefits, potential benefits of the offer as well. It's all right to identify those which perhaps create risk or create challenges, but I would suggest that it's also right to have a balanced view on what the positive benefits could be. So after all the time, effort, intellect and energy that have been put in by a whole lot of people into that proposal and that offer that has been put before you and has been before you for over a year, I felt somewhat disrespected in the way that council staff reported to you in their analysis, and it was somewhat disappointing. We're all trying to do our best to contribute to make Christchurch a better place, and I would hope that we're able to acknowledge that we're working towards that. So it's clear that staff want you to reject the proposal, and that's fine. The negative narrative doesn't give you any options to consider or matters to weigh up and compare. But what disappoints me the most is the absence of any alternative. What is the counterfactual, the alternative scenario? What are staff proposing to do? Where's the strategy for realising the vision of the regeneration plan? Where's the leadership? Where's that vision? There's nothing there to grasp onto. I don't know what it is. A lot of work. I was part of doing a lot of that work at Regenerate Christchurch to develop a really strong, coherent vision and build a really broad range of support. But I don't see how council and what the plans are for realising that. I appreciate it's a sophisticated commercial proposal. There's a lot of complexity to it, and it's perhaps outside the comfort zone of what our staff are normally dealing with. But I think that it deserves a better analysis than what was presented to you. But I want to talk about the future. So I'm going to try and use this and see if this moves through. So you won't be able to see this very well on that screen, but hopefully you'll be able to see it on the hub. So this is work done just very recently by Earthwork Landscape Architects and Matt Lester in particular. I thank him very much for all the work that he and Rafi have been doing on this. It starts to tease out that master plan that you've already seen. It shows how the multi-dimensions, the natural, the cultural, the social and the physical can be integrated together. How the stop banks support the land uses, how they can integrate with the landform, how the public and private and not-for-profit sit side by side and complement each other, getting the right balance between energy and introspection. all of this is nested within a massive regenerating ecological habitat connecting people with nature. And if you heard that phrase before, that is the vision of the regeneration plan. Everyone needs something different from this land. We all need different things from it at different times of the day and of the year and of our lives. They all come together with a plan that everything binds it together with where everything has a place and no one misses out. And the plan starts to look like that. The top one there is the green print in the regeneration plan. The bottom one is the next layer of detail. So look, all that's there. That's fine. Now, in the perfect world, as Peter was saying, and look, and I really have a lot of sympathy for what he's saying, because I think I might have written one of the first papers on governance structures for this area way back in 2017 or 16 or something like that. In the perfect world, all the ducks should be lined up and we're ready to go, and that would be great. But I'm not sure if that's the perfect world we want, because the main call that I hear is for collaboration, and this is exactly what you're talking about, Leanne, in terms of working together to realise this. But it's not only council and it's not only mana whenua, it is a multiple range of partnerships to work together. The tool to do that, we can talk about theory and we can talk about structures and we can talk about these, how we make decisions and all that sort of stuff. But when we get down to talking about the master plan and exactly what happens and how it happens and all those sort of stuff, that's when it becomes more real. So the collaboration should be at that level, not at a step back from that. So the master plan is the thing that binds us together, because everybody's success is dependent on everybody else's success. So I appreciate the tension that you face between making progress and taking the time to set up a long-term governance structure. I also appreciate the financial challenges that you have and the need to bring all the partners on a journey. I would obviously prefer you to accept the overall offer, but I'm not naive to these tensions, of course. You may wish to consider a middle ground.
Rob, we're coming to the...
Yeah, no. Can I give you the middle ground and then I'm finished?
Okay.
Yep.
Middle ground.
Thank you. A proven principle of the leasing of the first 6 projects. We worked together, established a multi-partner working group, that broader collaboration group, to work together to develop that master plan, and for final approval by the co-governance group once you have established it. Let's make progress on multiple fronts at the same time. Ultimately, I think we all want the same thing, and I'd be interested to hear what your discussion is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to present today. Thank you.